Welcome into the Illini Inquirer podcast. Jeremy Werner, Illini Inquirer publisher here, and we're going to talk some basketball today. We've been talking a lot of football here on the podcast, but there's been a lot of basketball happenings. Tausk is going to join me to break it all down. Mihailo Petrovic is eligible for the Fighting Illini. Had a good idea this would happen, but the NCAA makes it official. Illinois makes it official. The Mihailo Petrovic is eligible to play. He's been dealing with some injuries. We'll chat about that, but he's got 3 years of eligibility. Kind of a nice surprise for the Illini. We'll break that down, what that means for him, that means for the Illini as well. And everybody else is talking about it. We've been reporting about it throughout the weekend. Illinois versus Florida in the exhibition. We've gathered some details, some in-depth details. We weren't there, but we'll chat about what we're able to take away from the exhibition against Florida, a 96-86 loss for the Illini. And Illinois has a new commitment in the class of 2026. Top 60 guard Lucas Morillo out of New York, plays in Boston, and has Dominican background. So we'll chat about what he brings to the program, why Illinois really focused on him, and what could be next in the class of 2026. Tausk is going to join me next to break that all down. But first, I want to chat about one of our great new sponsors here on the Illini Inquirer podcast, and that is Game Day Spirit. You know them as the official fan store of the Fighting Illini, and we are so happy to bring them on board. And right now, you guys know them as the official fan store of the Fighting Illini, but they're kicking off our partnership by offering an exclusive discount for Illini Inquirer listeners. You can get 15% off your next purchase with them online at GameDaySpirit.com when you use the code Illini15 at checkout. You can shop their great selection of Fighting Illini merchandise to continue to cheer on your Fighting Illini football team this season, or get some new gear to support the men's basketball team as they start their season. They have everything an Illini fan could want, from t-shirts and sweatshirts to hats and official NIL jerseys of your favorite Illini athlete. So locally, you can visit them in store in Champaign at the corner of 6th and Green in Campustown, or Neal and Kirby in Champaign, really close to Memorial Stadium and State Farm Center. Oh, but also be sure to use that exclusive Illini Inquirer discount code for your next online purchase. Some exclusions may apply by using code Illini15 at checkout at GameDaySpirit.com. Game Day Spirit, where the Illini fans shop. All right, let's bring in Kyle Tausk. We'll talk some Illinois hoops. We've got a lot to chat about here, Kyle. It's kind of been a busy weekend for Illinois basketball. We got to commit Lucas Morillo. We got to talk about a little bit about what we've learned from Illinois' exhibition against Florida. And Mihailo Petrovic is eligible. So we got a lot to chat about, man. How you been?
Been good. I'm just waiting for that first game to get here. It's kind of the countdown is on now. We got 5 days and a regular season basketball game is going to be happening at State Farm Center. I can't wait for it. But yeah, a lot to chat about heading into that. I'm excited.
Yeah, and we're going to actually do another season preview. Derek Piper is going to join us on the podcast. I'm looking forward to it. We'll have that later on in the week. He, I think, wants to give away some of his a lot of basketball takes have probably been building up. So excited to bring him on. We'll try to do that every once in a while as he gets the itch to do that. So we'll chat about the opener against Jackson State and what you and I want to see in that one. But we finally got the news, Kyle, that Mihailo Petrovic is eligible to play for Illinois basketball this season. The NCAA likes to wait maybe until the last minute to approve these. I never got the feeling around Illinois circles that this was a question, a big question. It was just about timing more than if he would get approved. They obviously have done a lot of work. They have a lot of experience doing these things. But this one happened at least a little bit before Tomislav Ivicic. He was the day before the season started last year. Mihailo Petrovic gets it about a week before the season starts. The biggest surprise here, Kyle, is 3 years of eligibility. I kind of heard going in 2 years for the 22-year-old would be likely. He gets 3 years. That could be significant here and probably a little bit of pleasant surprise, even if we don't know if he'll use all 3 of those years. At least it's an option for him in Illinois.
Yeah, definitely a surprise. I didn't anticipate that for a guy who's going to turn 23 at some point during the season to potentially have the opportunity to play college basketball till he's 25 years old. I know there's plenty of people out there that feel a certain type of way about that. And just it's crazy what's happening now with some of these older guys, and whether it's pro leagues overseas or now these G League guys that are 21, 22 years old getting recruited with multiple years of eligibility left. Who knows really what the NCAA decides on some of these things, but it's definitely nice to just get this behind you. And like you said, there didn't seem to be much concern about it, but just nice to have that distraction gone and know that you have your full team available for the opener. Now it's really about just getting him on the court healthy, because more so than the eligibility concerns, there's some injury concerns with him that you'd hope to put behind you as well. But it's good to get a ruling on that. And yeah, the 3 years is interesting, because I think the expectation was you might get 2. And I do think next year is probably the really important year in which you try to get him integrated. This year he's going to be a big piece, but he could be one of your top guys, one of your core guys next year when you lose Kylan Boswell, when you maybe lose Tomislav Ivicic. But now there's a chance that you could have a 25-year-old point guard running the show a couple of years down the line, and what that could look like with him and his talent as he gets more and more comfortable and adapted to college basketball. It's an intriguing possibility now as you move forward with roster building, but nice to have him just in the short term available, ready for this year. Hopefully the injuries will be behind him at some point, but that's a really important piece, and now you have some answers on that.
Yeah, when Tomislav Ivicic got 3 years of eligibility, I was like, I don't know if that third year is going to happen. I think the plan is for Tommy to be a 2-year guy, go to the NBA, and I think that's going to be the case. I don't think Petravich is an NBA guy, like an NBA ceiling kind of guy. Not that he's not a good player. So that third year becomes way more interesting to me, because this is pro basketball for him. Like this is he can get paid as much here, if not more, playing at Illinois than some of the places he would play overseas. Now, maybe he doesn't want to be in school for 3 years. We'll have to see with that. But like a third year, like I think is actually significant. While Tommy, maybe he could do it, but like Tommy potentially could be an NBA draft pick, and I think he's going to play in the NBA at some point. I don't think that's the case for Petravich. So that just opens up some interesting possibilities for Illinois, that he has that third year, and for Petravich to make a lot of money playing college basketball at age 24, 25.
And it's such an important spot too, at that point guard spot. If you don't have to worry about going outside or relying on a young guy, and it's not to say that Petravich is going to be your only option, because I know super high on Keaton Wagler and what he can do as a lead guard. And there's so many different ball handlers and decision makers that Brad Underwood likes to build his rosters with. But man, if you the next 3 years don't have to worry about going out and getting a true point guard and a true table setter and a guy who can run offense for you, that is a huge luxury to have, because those guys are expensive and they're hard to find really good ones. And to have an experienced guy who it's going to take some time for him to adjust to playing in this system. And as we've talked about, just kind of go from maybe not having the ball in his hands every time down the floor and learning how to impact things in other ways. But especially as an older guy, if you move forward and you do lose some of your other options, he could end up being a guy that has the ball in his hands all the time, is one of your top options, and just continues to grow into that and is so experienced. And man, that's a huge luxury to have in building your roster, because then you can piece guys around him that can fit next to him. You can piece shooting around him. And I think that opens up a lot of possibilities. And if you can keep him around for all 3 of those years, it's really exciting about what that could look like and how much he can grow and get more comfortable here, and what that could look like in a third year where he's 24, 25 years old and he's played so much basketball, and that could be one of the best players in the Big Ten at that point, potentially.
The other thing I don't want to overlook is just now that we know for sure he's got even a second year, this year's like, obviously Illinois can do a lot of great things, and you want to maximize Tommy and Kylan Boswell. But you could have Petravich, Mirkovic, Wagler, Stojakovic, Big Z. Like that is something that could be really good for Illinois, and to add a piece in the portal. Like you could have a 2-year window here. I know we talked about last year being that, and you never know because guys can transfer out. Rez Johnson, Trey White, we thought it was possible 2-year pieces. But if you get most of those guys back, you have a retained foundation that you can continue to build on and start to just have some continuity year to year. That's what you want, right? Is some type of year to year continuity. And now we can add Petravich into that possibility of, maybe not having to overturn 10, 11 spots in a year. It's just going to be 6 or 7 like most teams have.
Yeah, the second consecutive year of that, I think, would be huge, because the last 4 years, it's been either or. It's been 1 year where you have some continuity, and then the next year you're turning it over. And then 1 year you have some continuity. You want to start to build a foundation, and you don't have to be fully and then they're not going to be fully in the Matt Painter realm and some of these other programs that are just weird. We're going all in on our guys, and we're going to block out some of these other avenues. But you want to mix it, right? And you don't want to go fully into we have to turn over 10, 11 guys every single year. And it's clear that they don't want to do that anymore. They've done that a couple times. It's had very mixed results when they've done it, and you're starting to see them really build towards trying to retain core guys year over year. And it is exciting because, yeah, Kylan Boswell, Thomas Slavivicic, if those guys end up leaving, those are huge losses and guys that you have to replace. But you have a strong core of guys who have a lot of upside, who are younger. Obviously, Petravich isn't, but Wagler, Mirkovic, guys to build around. And then you can go piece together a piece here, a piece there, a transfer here, a freshman there, who we'll talk about one of those guys in a minute here. And that's where you can start to really consistently build upon each season. And the retention is just so huge. You need the mix, and you need to have guys you can trust that have been there. We see how big of leaps guys can take in their second year playing in a program, in a system. And to get guys like that with Petravich, with Mirkovic, with Wagler, with what these guys could be, I think that could be really exciting. And those guys can take a huge leap forward and end up turning into a new core for you.
The immediate impact of this is, I mean, one, he's eligible, but two, you don't got to worry about this anymore. Like, Petrovich doesn't have to worry about this anymore. He can focus on what has been a hamstring injury. I was told he played 2 minutes in this exhibition. I don't know if he tweaked that hamstring or not. We'll have to talk with Brad Underwood, but he had an ankle injury before that. So it's just been really a disruptive start. He wasn't here all summer, gets here late August, tries to ingratiate himself into the team, has an ankle injury, has a hamstring injury. So I don't expect him to start right away. Like, I think this is Keaton Wagler and Kylan Boswell in the backcourt. I think he's going to be your sixth man energy guy off the bench that, combined with maybe a Mirkovic, if Mirkovic starts or not, can really be an engine off the bench. But at least now he can just focus on that and just focus on getting healthy and not have to worry about that in the back of his head, because he's got enough going on, right? Just transitioning here, transitioning to a new country. So I don't have huge expectations for Petrovich right away, because there's been so much disruption for him with injuries, getting here late. But man, he gives them something they don't have otherwise, Kyle, with that ability to break you down in the half court. His speed is real from everybody you talk to. We know he can create for others. His shooting and defense are concerns, but he can push the ball in transition. He can find and make things happen in the half court too.
Yeah, no doubt. And honestly, the bigger concern has been the injuries more so than even the eligibility to this point, because he has battled multiple injuries. It was first an ankle, now it's a hamstring. And I think for him in the build up to the season, and why I wonder what his role will look like early in the season, early November, these first couple games, Texas Tech, what that looks like for him, because I just think for him more so than anybody else on this roster, he can't just all of a sudden, miss a bunch of time and then you plug him in and everything's fine. Like there's an adjustment there to what he brings, how ball dominant he's been and is going to be, and just the chemistry there and how he fits on a team that has a lot of different options, that Illinois runs a lot of different things through different guys, different ball handlers. And when he comes in, it seems like, and it has been the case in his career, he's going to dominate the ball for the most part. And that's his role on this team. You want him to put him in on-ball action. You want to put him in ball screens. You want to allow him to push and transition and break defenses down, spray it out to shooters and get you paint touches, get to the rim, all those things. But I wonder what that adjustment is like for him, knowing that he hasn't had this full October on the floor, building those things, and how cautious Brad Underwood is with his minutes early in the season when you have Boswell and Wagler, who have been repping together for a long time. That's probably going to be your starting backcourt. And you start to bring Stojakovic back and the front court with Mirkovic and Tommy, who can do so much with the ball and create for you. I have a feeling Brad Underwood might take a little bit more of a cautious approach with Petravich, even if he's fully healthy, just maybe getting 5-minute spurt here, 5-minute spurt there to provide some of those things to give you a burst a la Andre Curbelo as a freshman, as you mentioned. And then as the season goes on, as he gets more comfortable and those things, then you start to see his role really expand. But he's going to be an important piece. I just think it might take some time. And it does stink that he hasn't been out there in full preseason, because I think for him more so than a lot of guys on this team, that is really, really important for the way he plays and how much he's going to have the ball.
I love covering football games. I love going to Memorial Stadium on a beautiful fall Saturday, just like last week against Ohio State. But I got to tell you, one of my favorite reasons going up to that press box is they have Columbia Street Roastery coffee there, and they have specifically my favorite, their Nitro Brew. I have about 2 or 3 of those a game, gets me all jacked up for it, but it's some of the most delicious coffee, smooth flavor, great finish, put a little cream in there. It's one of my favorite things about going to cover an Illinois football game. And right now, you can go to Columbia Street Roastery, great local coffee spot here in Champaign-Urbana, get all your freshly roasted coffee, so many fall flavors to choose from, including their pumpkin brew. If you like the PSLs, go try that out. But go to their website, csrcoffee.com, and you can get free shipping on orders over $45. You can get 10% off your first order as well with code GOILLINI2025. So go to csrcoffee.com, get 10% off your first order with code GOILLINI2025, and you can get free shipping on orders over $45. And if you visit them locally, try that Nitro Brew. Tell them Jeremy sent you from Illini Inquirer. Columbia Street Roastery, csrcoffee.com. All right, let's talk a little bit about the Illinois-Florida exhibition. We were reporting on this throughout the weekend. I got some notes, and our VIP subscribers have seen this the last couple of days, but it's time to talk about it here on the podcast. From what I've heard, Kyle, it was a really high-level back-and-forth game with Florida, the national champion, defending national champion. 96-86 was the final score. From everything I've heard, it was basically just a 40-minute scrimmage. Didn't do a lot of situational stuff, so this was just playing a game. From what I heard, Illinois kind of had control early. They took a lead in this game, but they subbed out, and obviously not a very deep team right now. And Florida went on a huge run, built almost a 20-point lead in this one. But this is what I kind of like, Kyle. The game kind of settled back, and Illinois made a huge push, cut it to a field goal halftime, and then the second half, it was a really competitive back-and-forth game. Illinois was up 6 with about 5 minutes left, made a couple mistakes, had to foul to try and catch up and shorten the game, and Florida finished kind of pulling away because of that by 10 points. But I like that they show some confidence here early, Kyle, and face some adversity against a high-level opponent, but retook the lead. And the best part about it as a coach is like there's things you can be happy about, but also things you can really pick apart with some of the mistakes they made late, giving up that big lead. But for me, the biggest takeaway that I've heard is the freshmen played incredibly well. They're not playing like freshmen. I heard David Mirkovich had 17 points and 6 rebounds. So going up against that Florida front court, that's really encouraging, because that was the question after the exhibition. So, okay, what's it look like against a great front court? And Florida's got one of the best ones in the country. So Mirkovich seems for real. Keaton Wagler, 14 points. And I heard he was one of the best players on the team. So didn't seem tentative at all. Kylan Boswell was great, 22 points. I heard Brandon Lee played really well in his role, played within himself, and we've talked about that. Simplify his role. But Kylan had 22 points, led the team. Tomislav Ivicic back on the court, only played 20 minutes, was on a minute's restriction coming off the tonsillectomy, had 17 points. And I heard he was very, very impactful. So, again, against that front court, we know Tommy can do that, but it's encouraging that he did. Sounds like Tommy and Thomas Haw were 2 of the best players on the court on Saturday. Heard Ben Hummerka shot it decently well, but struggled against Florida's front court. Zvonimir Ivicic, up and down game. Mihailo Petrovic only played 2 minutes. Andrei Stojakovic did not play in this one. But from everything I've heard, it was a pretty good showing, Kyle. So we weren't there. We didn't see what was happening outside of the 45 seconds of highlights that Illinois showed. But what do you take away from any of all that?
I think there's a lot of positives to draw from that. And I think you hit it first, just in terms of kind of the script of the game and how it went. Very positive to see a team that could have easily, and even a team like last year's team could have easily down 20 to the defending national champs with a lot of veterans back. That could have gone really sideways, and we could be hearing a final score that was 96-76.
Can I tell
and
you? I
just,
even heard, last year's team, we don't respond.
yeah, I think that's a positive, especially with the fact that Illinois hasn't had their whole group out there, and it is, you're bringing Tommy back after he missed some time, and so I think that's a positive, and to hear that it was a high level game, you go toe to toe offensively with an extremely talented offensive team, really well coached team, really good front court, especially on defense, and to see what Mirkovic followed up that Illinois State game with. That's honestly the biggest takeaway of the preseason, I think, for me is David Mirkovic stock way up. And I think we probably underestimated the impact that he's going to have on this year's team, because if he can do that against Florida's front court, who is really good, really physical, will throw a bunch of different bodies at you, that is really, really encouraging. And even, I know it's hard to take a lot from these, 1 minute cut up highlight clips that these teams are posting, because they're so selective and you're picking the best stuff. But there was a lot of David Mirkovic in Illinois' 51-second clip they posted. And you saw him, couple assists, scoring. I mean, I think he's going to be a big piece on this team. And the fact that he can follow that up against a team like Florida, and follow it up playing with Tomislav Ivicic, which was another question I had, to be honest with you, coming out of that Illinois State game, was what does it look like when both those guys are out there? Because we know how much of a hub Tommy can be offensively, and how much Illinois can play through him at times. Do things simplify a lot more for Mirkovic? Does he become less involved when Tommy's out there? Didn't sound like that was the case. And maybe they staggered their minutes a little bit with Tommy on a minutes restriction, but those guys coexisting together with what both can do offensively, I think is huge. And just to see your veterans play really, really well and take control. Kylan Boswell to be the alpha in a game, going to Orlando to play the defending champs, and he takes over and has 22 points and is your leading scorer. That's the mindset you want when Texas Tech comes to town in a couple of weeks. When you go play UConn and Alabama, that's the Kylan you want. He's got to take control of that. And Tommy coming back after missing some time to have the impact he had. Those two guys are going to be really, really good. And you need them to be really, really good. But to see them do that, I think was positive. So even in a loss, obviously the big concern for me is 96 points allowed. That's a question on this team.
What the hell, man, Crocker? Yeah.
It's a really, really good Florida offense, but you did allow 96 to a Florida team that didn't have Boogie Fland, one of their most dynamic guards. But even in a 10-point loss, it sounded like there was a lot of positives to take from it, and a heck of a test and just a heck of a learning opportunity before these games count against as good of an opponent as you'll find.
Yeah, I don't know the starting conversation we'll have probably, unless David starts the first game. He's the best four they have on this roster, right? And there was one clip they showed of a David high-low to Tommy for a shot and make, and that's exciting. I'm really excited to see what that looks like with them together. Hummerkaus certainly has a big role on this team, but we know what that role is. David's ability to create, his ability to rebound, his ability to push it in transition. It's really exciting. Yeah, he's way better than I thought to start this thing right away. He's way more ready than I thought. And I agree with you. Like, seeing the exhibition, I was like, oh, okay, look at this skill set. This is fun. But to do it against a Florida front court, like that's got me really excited. So the fact that these freshmen look like they're way more ready for a high impact than we thought in May or June is really exciting, because that lifts the ceiling of this team and lifts the floor of this team, so that Tommy and Kylan have some help. We still got to figure out what Andre Stojakovic is in this thing. That's another concern, is that he didn't play quite yet. He does seem on track, and I've heard he's progressing nicely. So we'll see if he plays in the opener. But the fact that those two can maybe help some of that as Andre gets back into this thing, those guys look ready to go, Kyle.
No doubt. Yeah. And I think it's not going to, the starting conversation is one thing, but David Mirkovic is going to be a really important piece on this team, and I think is going to provide you more than maybe we thought. And he just seems so advanced in what he can do offensively, and his ability to create and handle the ball. And I'm very interested to see what that could look like with both Tommy and him together, and some high-low stuff, like you said. Like, that's really intriguing. There's just so many different wrinkles that you can throw in offensively when you have another big alongside Tommy who can do some of those things as a playmaker. And I think as the season goes on, I would be very surprised if David Mirkovic not only isn't your starting four, but is also the guy that's handling the majority of those minutes. Not to say that Ben Humrickhouse isn't going to be an important player, but especially if Mirkovic can shoot it at a decent clip, I think that's the one question that you want to see as the season goes on, because there is so much emphasis on spacing in what Illinois wants to do. He can shoot 32, 33%.
30 to 33 would be
Yeah.
a decent percentage for him.
If he can do that, I think he's going to be on the court quite a bit. I think he's going to be a guy that Brad Underwood doesn't want to take off, especially in crunch time with what he can do and how much trust you can have in his decision-making right now. But really nice to see Keaton Wagler follow up a shaky exhibition start. It wasn't a bad performance against Illinois State, as we talked about, but from the sounds of it, without necessarily seeing it, but even seeing just a couple of the clips that they posted with him taking a guy off the bounce and getting to the rim, just it sounded like a more confident guy, and a guy who didn't back down from a really tough test against a Florida team. And Brandon Lee continues to show that while he might not play a big role, if he's called upon, he's going to give you what you want him to give you, and that's play hard defensively and maybe create a little bit at the rim for you offensively. It's encouraging because you didn't know how much you were going to need the freshmen based on how this roster was constructed. It's become more apparent as we've gotten closer to the season that you're going to need more from them. And it sounds like they're handling it well, and they're prepared to take that, and really, really exciting all around there to hear that those guys played well.
Monday, we tip off Illinois against Jackson State at State Farm Center. Jackson State should be a team that Illinois should handle. They're about 256, I believe, in the Ken Palm. Lost by 40, 50 points to a lot of high major teams last year. So what do you want to see, Kyle? Like, what are you looking for in the opener? My one would be Andrei Stojakovic and Mihailo Petrovic on the court. Yep. That would be number one. And then just to see Mirkovic with Ivasic, Tommy, would be my next one.
Yeah, number one for me, I would really like to see Andrei Stojakovic play and what that looks like. And I think it's going to be a little bit choppy early, just in the fact that he hasn't been out there for a long time now. I mean, this injury happened at the beginning of September, I believe, and he's still not. I wonder how much he's involved, because it's interesting. It felt like, based on the fact that he was out there before practice, the day before that exhibition game, saw him look pretty full go, warming up for practice. You know, obviously you're not seeing him go up and down, but he looked pretty healthy. And then I know you saw him go through a pretty full workout. Like, he looks like he's close. The fact that he didn't play in that Florida exhibition is a little bit concerning. But
could be just being really cautious for an piece that has a lot of experience. But it'll be interesting to hear from Brad. This week,
But I still am really high on what he can be. I wonder what it looks like early on now, because I do think it's going to be tough to just throw him back in to a team that is starting to build some chemistry together, and a guy who obviously is going to be a big part of what you do offensively. Can he get his footing? Can he find his comfort level in playing off of some of the other guys out there and finding his place in his role? I think that's going to be a bit of a work in progress for him early in the season now, with the fact that you haven't had him for a lot of the preseason. But these games against these bye teams at Jackson State, Florida Gulf Coast, like, these are the games you want to see him get out there and really start to build that, so that you don't have to be playing from behind when you have Texas Tech coming to town, and you can have him feel confident and adapted to what Illinois wants to do, and at least starting to build comfort in the offense, because he's really important, and you're going to need him in a lot of games, because he's a guy who can create his own shot. He's one of your best individual shot creators on this team offensively. He's going to have so much space to work with. He can thrive playing alongside passing bigs like Tommy and David Mirkovic, but that takes some chemistry to build for that, and a feel for what those guys want to do. haven't had that so far with Andre. So he's the number one thing. I want to see him out there. I want to see him starting to build those things. And Petravich too. Again, a guy who is probably going to have the ball a lot, and we'll see what his role looks like early in the season. But it's not just plug and play and everything's perfect for a guy like him who hasn't been out there for a while. There's going to take some adjustment there, but I want to see what that looks like with him out there. We haven't gotten to see either of those guys play yet from our eyes, or even really hearing behind the scenes from that Florida game with Petravich only playing 2 minutes. Those two guys getting on the floor and starting to find some comfort in the rest of what Illinois has, I think for me is the biggest thing in those first 2 games and definitely Monday.
It's never too soon to plan for Super Bowl season, and installing a Tushy Bidet makes bathroom visits so much more comfortable for your guests and your pipes. I know this ad can make some people uncomfortable, they'll laugh about it, but I'm telling you guys, installing a Tushy Bidet makes every bathroom visit so much better. Never feel cleaner in your life. It is an absolute game changer. Tushy is the everyday luxury bidet that instantly transforms your bathroom habits and the bottom health for life. 99% of people who wash with Tushy Wave feel cleaner and fresher after going to the bathroom. And I'm not a handyman, guys, but installing the Tushy Bidet took me about 10 or 15 minutes. And I'm telling you, it is a game changer for you. Put it in my bathroom, downstairs bathroom, and it's fantastic. So I'm telling you, you need to give the Tushy Bidet a try. And for a limited time, our listeners get 10% off their first bidet order when you use code Illini at checkout. That's 10% off your first bidet order at hellotushy.com with promo code Illini. Yes, for a limited time, our listeners get 10% off their first bidet order when you use code Illini at checkout. That's 10% off your first bidet order at hellotushy.com with promo code Illini. All right, let's wrap up talking about the newest commitment for Illinois basketball in the class of 2026. Illinois really prioritized Lucas Morillo over the last couple weeks and months, and they get him. Murillo commits to Illinois on Friday. He's the number 56 overall prospect in the class of 2026. 24/7 Sports lists him as the number 7 shooting guard. Other outlets have him as a point guard. Other outlets have him as a small forward. But he plays at the Newman School in Boston, Massachusetts. He's played in New York. Plays for the Dominican Republic national team. Chose Illinois over UCLA, Marquette, Texas, and Virginia. So a very, very good player. Third commitment in the class. He joins Ethan Brown, the Missouri guard, 4-star prospect, and Landon Davis, the 3-star Iowa forward. What do you think, Kyle, of his game? Because he really seems to fit a lot of things that Brad Underwood likes in his guards nowadays.
Absolutely. Yeah, he totally strikes me as a Brad Underwood type of guy. And I think he fits really well in what Illinois wants to do. Obviously has the positional size, but his feel, his IQ, his ability to handle the ball and play in on-ball action as a bigger guard, that's something that we've seen a lot here at Illinois. And just, excuse me, just the fact that you're seeing Brad Underwood find a lot of different guys who can do that at different spots on the floor. And you want to have a lot of different decision makers, a lot of different guys that you can run action through. Is Murillo ever going to be a true point guard at the college level? I wonder that, but I do think he's a guy that's going to play in a lot of action. He's a guy that as he grows into a role, he'll come in as a freshman and he's probably going to play more of a role. Probably similar to what Keaton Wagler is for this year's team. I think could be maybe to a lesser extent from a scoring standpoint, but I think you could see that and then hopefully build with him into the future. But he's just really mature game for his age, really high IQ, just has such a great feel on the floor and reads the floor really well. I think another thing that I know Illinois has to love with his game is his ability to push, rebound, ignite the break. He's not the quickest, most athletic guy, but he can push it up the floor and he's really comfortable playing fast and has been such a great rebounder throughout everywhere he's played. I mean, it's 7, 8, 9 rebounds a game and a guy who can then handle it and ignite some things off of that. I think the biggest question for me is the scoring upside for him. How much of a scorer will he become at the college level? Because he isn't the quickest. He isn't the most athletic guy. He's a below the rim scorer. And so what does that look like against high major athletes? He's a guy who's relied a lot upon creating angles and craftiness offensively to try and create shots for himself. How does that look at the high major college level compared to what he's doing at the high school level right now as a guy who's not much of a shooter and is honestly kind of a hesitant shooter? I mean, AAU play averaged 3.5 attempted per game. High school level shot 2 threes a game, hasn't shot it at a great percentage. I think that's where the biggest growth will have to happen for him. But man, when you have a guy that there's certain things that you can't teach in a guy, and the feel that he has for the game and the ability to be a playmaker, the ball handling ability with his size, really, really exciting foundation to work with, and a guy that I think can really develop into a core piece for this team down the line and really help you right away. Whereas the question marks for the other two guys of how much will they impact things immediately probably will take a little bit more development. Lucas Morillo can come and help you right away and hopefully grow into a guy who at some point could be a star level piece for you.
Yeah, the three things I think about with this are positional size. He's 6'7". He's got some mass to him, winning pedigree, and basketball IQ. He's won a state championship, is playing for a great program, was great for the Dominican national team. All of those things that Brad Underwood really, really prioritizes. And I really think it is fitting that Illinois beat out UCLA, because the two guys who he reminds me of both played at UCLA, and you can understand why the Bruins wanted him. I'm not saying he's going to be Jaime Jaquez, but there's some of that in the game. Like, there's just not a ton of athleticism, but man, this guy's just got a great feel for the game, and you could see his game maturing as the years go on to where maybe he becomes more comfortable with that shot and can do the Marcus Damas things in the post like Jaquez used to do. The other guy I sent you he's like the Illini's version of slow-mo. Kyle Anderson.
I love that.
What he's done in the NBA, he's obviously not a star there, but he's a good role player, but just not a guy that's going to wow you with the shooting or athleticism, but just makes the right plays. And I do think he can be a solid defender just because of his length. Not a lot of explosive athleticism, but just that feel for the game, the size, the ability to create, the ability to score in multiple ways, and the rebounding. I just think he's a really good overall player. But yeah, I think can at one point of his career, whether it's the second year or third year, can be one of the better players on this team. And I do think he fits with an Ethan Brown, who's a really great athlete and I think has a great scoring punch. I don't know if Wagler will be here for year 3 for Illinois, but a Brandon Lee who can get downhill and get to the rim. I can see Murillo being kind of a hub of that offense where it's more of a secondary option. Will Riley was kind of that last year. Will's a way better scorer, but just be able to create for teammates, be able to cut, get to the rim. I just think there's a lot of things you can do with him. There's a lot of different players he can play with, Kyle. So he gives you a lot of versatility and positional flexibility there.
Yeah, for sure. Like you said, he's listed at a different position anywhere you look, basically. Really versatile defensively, too. Think he can guard a handful of different positions. Now, you stick him on a quicker, more explosive guard. I think that's where the quickness concerns with him start to mount a little bit. So you have to be a little selective with that. But he's tough on the defensive end. He's competitive. He'll pressure the ball. He'll play pretty physical. And that's still a guy that can add a lot of strength too. And I think absolutely could develop into a high impact defensive player, even with some of the athletic limitations. But yeah, I just think it's a guy who's going to come in and he's going to have such an advanced feel and understanding of the game and a maturity to his game as an 18-year-old that you can just continue to grow and is going to give him such a foundation as a player that you can start to develop some of those other things. And I do think down the line, I wonder what the shooting could look like. He's not a non-shooter. Will he ever develop into a huge shooting threat? I do question that. So I do think he's best maximized if you have a lot of shooting around him. And that's where I think you could start to see him if he does stick around for a third year. I do think you could do a lot of Marcus Damask like things with him if you pair him with the right lineup. If you have a 5-out big and you can really space the floor around him, if you open up the floor, let him get into some isolation matchups and then just make plays out of it and draw a help defender and read the floor and also score at the rim and create angles, which he's really good at doing, and just use his craft offensively to try and find ways to, even without the explosiveness off the dribble, to still score on the inside where he's comfortable operating. I think that could really develop over time, but he's just got such a strong foundation with his IQ, his ability to handle the ball, his rebounding. I think it's a guy who's going to impact things right away, but there's a lot of potential there for him to grow into. And I just think he's a great fit for what Illinois wants, and is just another really high level playmaker, ball handler that you can do a lot of different things with.
Yeah, and continues Orlando Antigua's Caribbean connections here, right? Like we're so focused on the Balkan and European thing, and understandably so, but the Caribbean connections starting to ramp back up again. Obviously, Andres Feliz and Kofi Coburn, Andres from the Dominican, Kofi Coburn from Jamaica, Andre Curbelo, Alfonso Plummer from Puerto Rico. Now you add Brandon Lee from Puerto Rico. You add Murillo, who's got the Dominican background. So it's great. I mean, the international connections go more than just the Balkans for Illinois. And that is, we talk about worldwide recruiting. This staff has connections in so many places. So that's nice to see that ramp back up again, because Orlando is as tied in as anybody in the country into that part of the world. But now you have 3 guys in this class of 2026. They have leaned into prep recruiting, and they want to be more of a developmental program again, to where you can have more of that continuity. You never know who stays, Kyle, but they are starting to prioritize some of that again. And they've been in on a lot of big name players: Josiah Jervis, Quentin Coleman, Alex Costanza, Dylan Mingo, Cameron Holmes. They've been in on that, but they don't want to overspend here. And it seems like it lined up with Murillo, both the fit, the price lined up. So I'm just very interested to see where they go next in this class. I wouldn't be surprised if they just waited to the spring, see who's coming back, see what the transfer portal looks like, see what the international angle looks like. And then if one rises that makes a great fit and is the right price, maybe they add another wing or guard. But I think the biggest need in this class remains center, because I'd be surprised if Tommy came back for another year. We'll see with Big Z, but this is it'll be interesting to see where they go next in this class. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm curious about that. I think it's just such a juggling game here with the prep recruiting now, where we just talked about all the guys that you could potentially have back in a core that you could be building for next year. Those guys are going to cost a lot of money to keep together. And that's something that we're seeing now, where prep recruiting, when it was such a free for all money wise, these last couple cycles, I think teams were willing to just go all out more on, if they liked a prep prospect, it's all right, let's throw a lot of money at him, let's get him here. Now, as you're starting to see spending get curtailed a little bit with revenue sharing, at least in theory, we'll see how it all ultimately plays out. You really have to start building your budget and figuring out where you want your highest paid guys, and starting to do the cap math of that all. And I think that's really interesting from Illinois' perspective. We've seen them do both of those things. Obviously, last year, 2 of your highest paid guys in a market that wasn't quite as it didn't quite explode as much as a few of these have. You had 2 of your highest paid, highest usage guys as freshmen. It seems like you don't want to do that anymore. It seems like you obviously want to prioritize retaining these core guys from this year's roster. What does that leave you, though? Can you go after another high profile type of guy? Do you have the money to bring that guy in? I just don't know if they do. And even if they did, can you make that decision now, as you said, as opposed to seeing it all play out? You don't want to overspend now on the prep class when you have opportunities later on, and there's so much uncertainty with the roster,
Because as good as Josiah Jervis is just shot maker, a scorer, like he puts the ball in the hoop. I mean, he's costing what it would cost to get a high level transfer, right? So, like, do you want to do that? Do you want to put that in now? And maybe if say you could put that towards Andre Stojakovic for another year, or finding the next Andre Stojakovic, like that's where they're at right now. So I think they've set themselves up well to have some guys who they can develop for the long term. I think Murillo can help them right away, not in a star role, but in a role. I think Ethan Brown's got a chance to be pretty good. I know they're very high on him, that maybe they got another steal in the backcourt. Landon Davis is going to take some time to develop, So I think you got a nice foundation to set yourself up. It's like, okay, we know we can add these 3 guys to the roster. They'll sign next month. And then we can reset this in the spring when we know who we're getting back, who we can get back, and then attack the transfer portal. The 2 guys that are just interesting to me are, speaking of international guys and your reach, Luigi Swigo out of Italy, visit here last year for an official visit, or last season for an official visit. They've been in on him for a while. The recruitment's kind of taken some twists and turns. So, but you talk about stretch fives, yeah, that's a guy you could develop potentially behind 1 or 2 of the Ivicic boys. And then Sinan Juan out of China, who just took an official visit here. He's visited Northwestern, some other programs. But those are the kind of guys you could add for a year, develop a little bit, and then hopefully, behind probably Zvonimir Ivicic, maybe be the guy after that. But these guys can get a lot of money somewhere else and potentially play a lot more somewhere else. So I think we're just gonna have to sit back and wait and see with those guys. But center's the one I think they got to add somebody.
Yeah, that seems like the need, but at the same time, if you do end up, first of all, you want to keep the option open to get Tomislav Ivicic back. I mean, if there's enough money there, and
Even if
I
it's
know
a 10% chance, right?
yeah, I mean, you want to make that all out offer and try to get him back. If he's got another year back, you want to pool as many resources as you have possible and not tie yourself into a different avenue if you have the opportunity to get him back. But even if you don't, like, I do think center is going to be a pretty big need for next year's roster. We'll see what Big Z ultimately does. I still feel like, and maybe he can get to that point, and we'll see what happens this year, but I still feel like entering a season with Zvonimir Ivicic as your best center, it probably leaves. I mean, it just, I don't know if that's
Well, if
how.
that's the case, I don't think I want a freshman as my second guy. I think I need,
Right.
whether it's a Jackson Kohler type, a physical player.
Yes.
Maybe it's Mirkovic. Maybe Mirkovic is your other center option, and maybe he's your starter at that position, though obviously not as big. But yeah, that type of player I can see fitting for Illinois. But that guy better be able to shoot with what Illinois
Right.
can play.
Yeah, I think what I was getting at more so is, do you want to pair a freshman who's a little bit more raw and you don't know how much you can count on with Big Z and that be your entire center rotation? I think you would get a little bit concerned about that. And again, maybe Big Z gets there. I think he can have a solid season. I think you'd maybe want to pair him with either a little bit more physical, different looking guy, or just another veteran who you can trust. And you know that there's going to be some inconsistency there. And Z's probably not a guy who you can comfortably play 30 minutes a game. So you want another guy that you can turn to comfortably. But so those are all questions that they'll have to answer and probably won't answer until after the season's over into the spring. But we'll see how that goes. I think my anticipation and based on what you've said is that they'll probably enter season mode and it'll quiet down a little bit on the prep front, and you'll probably revisit that more so in the spring once you get more of these answers with next year's roster. But it'll be interesting to see because it's a puzzle to build these rosters now with all the different ways, and now with how heavily Illinois has gone the international route. There's so many different factors at play there that it's tough to go all in on some of these higher profile prep guys with what they're going to cost and just the uncertainty around what things could look like in their first year.
The other guy I don't want to overlook, maybe Jason Jackson said the third season of his career can be the Jackson Kohler, because he's got some size to him, he got some physicality growing that offensive game. So I just wanted to mention that he could be an in-house possibility, and that's what you'd like to do. Year 3 of that developmental guy where he can be at least a rotational player. All right, good stuff, Kyle. This is fun to talk about. A lot of things going on with Illinois basketball, and soon the ball will tip. So I'm excited about that. Kyle, thank you, buddy. We'll chat probably do a post-game podcast after the Jackson State game. So thank you, buddy.
Thank you.
All right, great stuff. We appreciate you guys listening to the Illini Inquirer podcast. Give us a follow, rating, review, wherever you get your podcast. Check us out on YouTube. If you're watching right now on YouTube, hit that like button, subscribe, and hit the notifications bell. For Kyle Tausk, I'm Jeremy Werner. Everybody have a great day. Take care of each other. We'll talk to you next time right here on the Illini Inquirer podcast.